blows my mind that people can just up and just go to another land. Like for my parents, it's just still like we're leaving everything we've ever known, going to somewhere where it's our second language, not sure. We don't have everything lined up and who knows what's going to happen. It'd be terrifying.
This is Where We Land, a podcast bringing you stories of immigration and multicultural identity. I'm Luciana.
And I'm Claudia.
We're originally from Peru, so we have a pretty good idea of what living between two cultures is like. But we believe that no matter where you come from, immigrating to the U.S. is an experience rich with duality and meaning.
Join us as we speak with immigrants from all over the world about their journey and how it shaped who they are today.
Today, we're speaking with Gilbert Lawand, a stand-up comedian and comedy producer from Atlanta, Georgia. Gilbert was born in Iraq and grew up in the American South, which he says gave him plenty of material for his career as a comic.
We had tons of fun talking with Gilbert, and I discovered he's friends with a lot of the comics I follow, so that was a bonus. We talked about what it was like going to a YMCA that was still segregated, what prompted his pivot from accounting to comedy, plus a wild encounter with the KKK when he was a kid. Let's get into it.
Where in the world does your journey start?
My journey in this life started in Baghdad, Iraq, where I was born in 1974. I'm old now. I'm 50. Yeah, I was born there in Baghdad in 1974, and to Catholic parents, and then moved.
Interesting.
And then moved to Saudi Arabia for a couple of years for kindergarten, and then when I was 6, we moved to Warm Springs, Georgia, a really small town.
Okay.
About an hour and a half south of Atlanta. I remember first grade here. I had a brother and 2 sisters, all younger, and we moved over with my mom and dad in 1980. And I remember very specifically the first day of first grade doing the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Christian flag too. And I remember thinking to myself going, I just left Saudi Arabia and we didn't pledge allegiance there. And that place is not very progressive. So where did we land? It's kind of strange, isn't it? Every morning to be like, I pledge allegiance. I know I'm 8 years old, but I shall pledge allegiance.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
But yeah, it's really weird because it's a town of 500 people, one traffic light where we moved, which is still the strangest thing ever because the way that happened was my dad was friends with an engineer that went to Georgia Tech in Riyadh, and he knew he wanted to move to the U.S., so he's like, there's this really beautiful farm an hour and a half south of Atlanta that my friend is selling. You should go look at it as an investment. At first, it was going to be just an investment. So he bought it, and it's beautiful. Like, it's where we grew up, 400 acres, 30-acre lake on it. It's, like, beautiful.
Oh, wow.
It's where FDR died, where he used to go for polio treatment when he was president. It was kind of historic a long time ago, but he came over here, loved the land, he bought it, and then we moved here a few years later. It was kind of like going to be a staging kind of area where we got here, kind of get acclimated, then we're going to either move to Detroit or Chicago, where it's a lot more of our family. Then after like 3 years passed, my dad was like, well, I kind of like it here. We're just going to stay here. It's really weird to get to a town like South Georgia from Iraq.
That's such a funny story because, yeah, all it took was this one friend of his to suggest this property. And your dad was like, all right, I'm sold on it.
Right.
Yeah, I've never thought about that's how it actually began, was that conversation.
Yeah, because you're talking about 1980, right? You said? So It's not like now where you would get an email, maybe some photos. Something else. Yeah. No, it's literally like, hey, there's this piece of land that's beautiful. Why don't you come check it out? And then boom, your whole family's there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get to this farm in Atlanta. So yeah, what is your first impression of the U.S.? Was it what you expected? I don't know what ideas you have, if any, of the U.S. before that time.
There wasn't much of an expectation because of our age. So to get the whole cast and crew, I was 6, my younger brother was 4, my younger sister was 3, and the youngest sister hasn't gotten here yet. She was the mistake, my mom always calls it.
That's me and my family.
Oh, yeah. She's the best.
Everyone has one.
Yeah, they do. So I had somewhat of an expectation, but I just remember being scared. You know what I mean? The school is a strange school. It's a small private school. I graduated 28 people in my class.
Oh, wow.
The year I graduated in 1992 was the 25th year of that school. And at that point, no Black person had ever gone to that school.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, wow.
And so it was, I'm old, but I'm not old enough to be like, I remember segregated, like there's still segregated things, components to this area. And I definitely felt that when I was that age, and didn't really know exactly what it was, but because we got made fun of a little bit. But I have a joke about it where I'm like, well, I didn't feel that much racism because, my family and I had the highest SAT scores. We also were good at sports, and my dad's Mercedes that he had shipped over here from Germany was worth more.
So you and your siblings, were you like the only foreign?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
I remember they would tell us, it was like a few years ago, a couple of Jews went here, and that's how they knew they weren't open, but that's literally, there was nobody even, not even like, I wouldn't say ethnic, nobody even with a tan. I mean, we were like.
Right. No one that could tan.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
You were literally the outsider. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you're mentioning because, yeah, in your special, I remember you mentioned that your dad arrived in the U.S. with like $35 in his pocket and I don't know how many millions in stocks and bonds, and that you say you didn't really immigrate here as much as you just moved or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So is it safe to say that your immigration struggles weren't the financial kind? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say that. Those numbers are exaggerated, but we're well off. And money was never an issue. So that's why it still blows my mind that people can just up and just go to another land. Like for my parents, it's just still like we're leaving everything we've ever known, going to somewhere where it's our second language, to, not sure. We don't have everything lined up, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so if you add the financial stress and hardship that a lot of immigrants have to deal with, it's amazing. I mean, people know that are immigrants because they're either one generation off or like they were born somewhere else. They're close enough to it to acknowledge that it is one of the most courageous and, in a way, selfless acts that parents do or whoever does to bring family over. It'd be terrifying.
I wouldn't be too sure that you wouldn't be able to do it because we're going to get to it, but you've done some pretty courageous things in your career that are outside the norm. So I don't know. I think you have that spirit in you. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
So in part of your special, you focus on jokes about growing up in the farm that you mentioned in Georgia. So what was it actually like growing up as an Iraqi immigrant?
It was different depending on what age you're asking me about. I remember the YMCA didn't desegregate until I was like 10, which again, I'm not that old. It shouldn't. But I remember like somebody calling me a slur when I went to the pool with my brother and I. And I remember going, no, I'm not Black. That moment has been, it's like a brand on my brain, like a memory that's like so entrenched that I was like, when I said I'm not Black, I was like, oh my God. So what if I was? I mean, this is what that felt like. It just was it was so evil. And so like willfully, like hurtful. And I just never forgot that. So there's little moments like that existed. But overall, I think that when you grow up with people, they don't really, racism has to be taught. It was not really an issue, because we all kind of knew each other the same.
Right. They knew you from first grade.
Exactly. So it wasn't like that. And then it changed a little bit, like I said, like later on. And then the KKK came to Warm Springs one time. I remember that. And
oh, gosh.
They were like hanging out.
How old were you?
Yeah.
I was like 11.
And did you know who they were or what they stood for? Or what did you understand at that age?
No, I knew a lot more about them after my mom drove off. We pulled up to a red light, and they were trying to hand her some literature, and she spit, and she's
oh my God!
And just drove off. She didn't even run the red light. My mom was like not scared of anyone. I mean, my dad died when I was 12 in 1988, and left her with like 4 kids, all 12 and under, in a small town where she'd never written a check before, and finally got herself together, took like community college classes and business, became a very successful like real estate developer, built an assisted living home and a hotel here, and then sold it. So she's not scared of anyone. And so it was like, I was like, what was that? And she explained to me the hateful mission of this group. And I'd never known that there was such an organized group. And it's like Georgia has, which I live in Atlanta now. It's like, it's steeped in like, that kind of history, like good and bad, like the civil rights. It's like for every great thing that came out of there, there's some ugly, sordid, sad thing that's happened. But
so you were, was it safe to say, so in your smaller town and kind of school, it's a bit protected because you've grown up with those people since first grade, like Claudia said, but then as your world has started to expand a little more, maybe you've ventured to neighboring towns, college, you're exposed with age, you're exposed more and more. And then with like political situations, wars changing. So you studied, you were an accountant and a business consultant, and you have an MBA as well?
Yeah, the business path has always like been the only path. That comedy was never, I mean, I loved comedy as long as I can remember, but it was never really going to be an option. It was just like not a thing people do that I know. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become a CPA, and I'm going to work for accounting firms, and then I'm going to get my MBA, and then I'm going to be a consultant. And no, the way it happened was in grad school, a friend of mine that had kind of dabbled in comedy, he knew how much I loved it, and he was doing a show in Atlanta, this local club, and he's like, come by, I can get you I'll give you like 3 or 4 minutes on stage. Don't tell anybody if you don't want to. And I was like, okay. And I did it. And I was like, oh no, I love this. And then I did it infrequently that year. And then it was 2008, and I was working in like a transactions group for one of the big four. And 2008, when the economy crashed, they laid off my entire group. And that's when I was like, I don't want to jump right back into something that's 60 hours a week and travel. I want to try to have something more flexible and see where comedy might go, and kind of sort of revolving my decision making on the ability to be flexible enough to do comedy. But it's pretty late in life to start it. Most people are a little bit younger, although I don't know what I would have said at 20 years old too.
Right. Yeah. Like it's such a weird age, 20, to decide something feels so high stakes. Oh my God. I feel
you don't really know anything at 20, right?
You don't. Your brain's not even done for me.
We sound real old right now. I just want to say this little clip
I know we do.
Here.
I don't care. It's true. No one knows anything at 20.
I feel so much for like the young, deciding, thinking like all of these decisions are going to just like determine their whole life. And
major life decisions should be held off until at least 26 or to 30. Like, don't marry anyone. Don't choose your career. Don't lock down a career. Like,
no.
You don't know what you're doing.
Giving out real good advice here, guys.
We sound older and older.
So also you ventured into comedy also through producing. Yeah. Comedy shows, which I find very interesting. You really you were like, I'm putting this degree to use one way or another. How did you find your way into that?
So I met a guy named Jared who had been doing comedy for a few years, and he was really good and kind of knew the ins and outs of the world, had a small network of comics. And he was talking to me about like putting together a show, like a regular show at a venue. And that's when I found out the most incredible secret of comedy that I don't know exists in any other art form or framework of any kind. Like, if you want to do a show with your favorite comedian, you can do it. All you have to do is book him and pay him. Like, it's not like that in any other world. You can't be like, I'm playing guitar a little bit, so I'm going to play with Pink Floyd when they come around next time. It's like, you're not right. You're not do that. But in comedy, if you like promote it and sell tickets and book and like, you can literally do comedy with anyone you want. And that's when I was like fascinated by that. So I did kind of put some of my accounting skills and Excel skills and budgeting stuff together with him, with my friend who had kind of a network. And every week for which is, it's now the Punchline in Atlanta. It was called Comedy Gold. And for like a year and a half, Friday and Saturday, we just had people coming in from out, LA and New York, up and coming comics that we like picked really great ones that never, hadn't done TV yet, that like Nikki Glazier, Eric Andre, and like, all these people that I'm friends with. If I hadn't discovered that component, I probably wouldn't have gone all in as I did, because I did feel the self-conscious part of being older, a little older.
Also, there's like a business there, right?
Yeah.
Like, Because stand-up comedy is like, you're not going to make money for a while.
Right.
You have to be well known. You have to there's a fame aspect that you need to achieve first.
Totally.
And whereas with your business skills, like you can really, if you crunch the numbers and you can make that profitable, putting shows together, well, that's your way into stand-up comedy also. And you can just live in that world.
I just wanted to backtrack really quick to your special again, just because. So it really centers on your immigration experience. What do you think it is about being an immigrant that lends itself not just to comedy, but to being the theme of a comedy special?
Well, they always say in comedy, like everything has been done but you. So the more real and the more personal you are, the more you're more memorable you are, the more it resonates, the more entertaining it is. And I do have this like unique story and it's not even the fact that it's unique as much as it is that it gives me insight into two like worlds. And you're either going to be real serious or like offended or like laugh about things that are absurd, that don't make any sense on either side, and living in that duality of like, I love America and I hate some of the stuff we do. And, I'm very proud and grateful for being from like an area of the world that sort of civilization began, but also not liking some of the politics there. And it's like, and comedy is a great way to get that out, without being like, an angry, like, just hey, read this article. Dude, here's what it's like. No, I'm just
right. You're like, secretly you want to rant about a lot of things and you're just, let me turn them into jokes so people can actually hear me.
Let me show you all of these two realities. Let me expose them for you in a way that you will digest them. It kind of like to Claudia and I also, and us doing this podcast, we love to talk about, like our experience living in the US and living in Peru and our friends' experience and the cultural stuff. And that's what we like to talk about with all of our guests. Like that is the lens that we view things with. It would be so foreign for us to bring something else because that's like what we're, analyzing and into. And that's kind of.
And you would do a disservice to yourself and to your... It
would just feel inauthentic, I think.
Inauthentic, because it would be. Yeah, you said it perfect.
But no, I heard the comedian Mateo Lane talk about this because he's...
I know Mateo. I'm friends with Mateo.
Oh, really? Oh, I love him.
So hot. And I mean, I'm straight, and he's hot.
Yeah, but he's talked about being, quote unquote, a gay comedian. How at the beginning he had to juggle that. He's like, how gay do I want my jokes to be? Do I want them not to be gay at all? I don't want to be labeled. And then he was like, I'm gay. My jokes are going to be gay. Right. That's what it is.
Why would they not be when everything else about me is gay?
Exactly. Right. Like, that's my point of view. That's where I'm coming from.
That's one of my closest friends, James Adomian, is a gay comedian. He's mind-blowing how funny he is. And he's very much a demonstrative. He does a lot of voices and impression. And his jokes are so smart and funny. Like, I've done shows with him where in north of Atlanta at a HVAC holiday party where it's all redneck dudes, and he does like the first half of it where he's just killing with all these different impressions and then he tells them that he's gay and then does the rest of it. And so at that point they have to say to themselves, am I a hateful homophobic person? Because I've loved this guy up until he just gave us that information. And it's brilliant because it always does well. So it's like, you do what you, like you said, you do with what with whatever cards you're dealt, you kind of play those. But
that's so interesting that he does that, throws it in the middle. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, we talk a lot about community on this podcast because, as you know, even when you were very young, when you are new to a country, finding community is a huge part, and a lot of people struggle to find it. So obviously, like, you've kind of shared a little bit about like your school, like your family, but what was your experience like finding community in Georgia when you first moved there?
That question is probably the one part of my life and my family's life that was the only detriment. Like, not, I wouldn't say detriment's a little stronger word, but the community from Middle Eastern has been mostly family. And my mom, has We didn't do that as much with the Assyrian and Chaldean community as much as, and I actually feel bad about that because, we like talked my mom into staying here, and I'm like, you shouldn't listen to us. I was in 7th grade.
Right.
I don't know what I was doing.
You knew better, Mom.
No, it worked out, but the community, it's funny because like, it's just everything about me is, I guess, Southern, except for my DNA and my actual background. But then you realize people are like, I love cultures and customs and keeping them like, intact while also being part of another bigger community. The community in the stand-up comedy world is very unique compared to anything else. Like there's a comic named Doug Stanhope who said, I could quit comedy, but I could never quit comedians. Comedians are some of the most interesting people that are around. By and large, like the stand-up community is very much a group of people that don't have a lot of, I guess the word is like small talk, and it's very quickly, and it's not like intense, but it's more like the social graces have fallen off, and sometimes it makes it difficult to interact with like regular people. But that community is it's like a tight-knit community that very much values people that respect comedy and that are good or they're contributing to it.
That must be so nice, because it is like, I can relate to that in a sense of like, if I run into a Peruvian here, I don't care how old they are. I don't care how little they have in common with me. They're from Peru. I'm going to immediately start talking Spanish. I'm going to ask them where they're from. I'm going to get into it.
Yeah, you're going to connect.
You're going to connect immediately. You're not going to go, let me feel this person out. You're like glad to see each other. And then you launch into something.
I spent 30 minutes talking to like a 50-something-year-old woman in my gym because she said she was from Peru. And I was like, oh my God, I need to know everything. When did you come here? Are you married? What are you doing? Why are you at the gym at 11 a.m.? I need to know your life.
My mom does that with every single person that's Middle Eastern that she runs into. Like Costco, it's like, okay, she's meeting another person for 20 minutes and they're going to come to dinner probably. And that's another thing. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to see him tomorrow night.
Oh my God. I love it because we're getting that stand-up bit right now and it's so good.
What if I started looking at my phone? I'm like, so I want to ask you guys, what's the deal with, and I start doing
oh my God.
I'm kidding.
Okay. All right. So we are getting close to wrap up. We always like to ask a version of this question to everyone who comes on our podcast. So, do you feel more American, more Iraqi, more Southern? What would you say is your main cultural identity or identities at the moment? We know that we recognize this is always in flux.
I would say, so definitely I feel more American than I do Iraqi just because of lack of exposure to that. I mean, I would love, in fact, I think I'm going to Iraq next year for like a 3-week trip for the first time.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Northern Iraq for like 2 weeks. It's they're doing this annual trip, and I'm dying to go. So I'm trying to get that more, but I definitely identify more with American. And depending on what year, Southern would sometimes supersedes even the American part, and then sometimes not. It's different. Like I love the South. I love Atlanta. I love how much art, how much beautiful, like amazing music and entertainment and film. Like it's like whenever something is being held back or mistreated, beautiful art comes out of it always. And that's what the South is to me.
And it's so true what you said about great, beautiful things coming out of like pain. I have this quote that I love. I forget who said it because I'm not that literate, but it says, the winners write the history, the losers write the poems.
Yeah, that's very succinctly, perfectly put.
So we have a final segment called Speak My Language where we ask our guests to teach us a word or phrase that is unique to their language, culture, or place they come from or place they grew up. This could be something in Aramaic. It could be something Southern, maybe. That's typically a phrase that's typically from there. It could be from anywhere, just something that you really enjoy and that is unique to one of the many cultures that are a part of you.
No, I was thinking about that, and I started thinking about some Assyrian words, like when you say like "levid besima," which means This is a funny one to me. Don't be delicious, which is saying don't be too accessible or out there. Don't be too available and showy. But it's don't. I just love the wording. It's don't be delicious. Love it, Basima. Basima.
Oh, that one's actually not so hard to pronounce.
No, it's not. That's not one that sounds like you're clearing your throat.
There you go, Claudia. If you ever need it, you know how to say don't be delicious.
Okay, we've officially taken up way too much of your time.
Thank you so much, Gilbert.
Thanks so much. And keep doing what you're doing. I love, like I said, this podcast is great.
So that was our conversation with Gilbert. What did you think, Luciana?
Oh my God, hilarious. Right? I mean, it was so fun. He is funny. I mean, I also felt with his unique story, there were so many parts where I related personally.
There's a lot of overlap in his story and ours.
Yeah. I feel like his experience in the U.S. as a young child really resonated with a lot of what we experienced. The South and Visalia, California, these smaller communities, I feel have a lot of overlap.
Yeah, we grew up in it was a farming community. There was a lot of cows,
Yep. And when he was talking about remembering some instances of racism, but not fully understanding them until later in life, I was like, oh, 1,000%. Because you kind of clock, they stick in your memory.
Yes.
That was weird. But you don't really know what to make of them when they happen.
Oh my gosh. I have one in my mind. Do you have one in your mind?
Okay. I do, but go first.
Share. Share yours.
Okay, I'm going to share. So I can't remember if it was 6th grade there or 7th grade, but I remember, I bet it was the 7th grade, walking into a class and the teacher asking me oh, how do you pronounce your name? Or and I was oh, Luciana. I was oh, and how long have you been in the U.S.? And I don't think I heard the question properly. And I was what? And she's like, no, it's okay. You don't have to answer. Don't worry, by the way. A lot of kids here don't have papers. And I was oh. And then it was we have moved on. And I was that was a weird comment. Just kind of
Yeah, that was a random thing to say.
Later, I was oh, I clearly look Hispanic. I clearly look like I'm not from here. She thinks I'm here illegally, probably, which was not an unfair assumption. I remember we had a lot of Central American kids, Mexican kids, some also Asian kids. This is a place with a lot of immigration. But I was huh. But I just remember the moment and not getting it and then getting it later.
Right. Yeah. And then later you sit with it and you're oh, she was thinking this.
Yeah.
Got it.
Judging the book by its cover, 1,000%.
And assuming, just making assumptions along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thinking she was being helpful, probably.
Yeah, I know Gilbert faced being categorized as a completely different race. And in the segregated South, that was high stakes, So I can't even imagine that, just a completely different race. At least mine was okay, I'm Hispanic. Doesn't matter which type, doesn't matter what country, but you are being bundled nonetheless.
Yes, you are. Speaking of this very topic of not realizing racism in the moment until much later, it wasn't racism towards me, but it was racism that I witnessed. Mm-hmm. I was in 3rd grade, 4th grade. I'm not really sure, but around that age, probably 8, 9, I don't know. And we were outside. And there was the teacher, and we were all in a little circle or whatever. And the kid next to me, this blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid, turns to the girl that's on the other side of him, who was a little black girl. And he turns to her and he says, "You're a black piece of trash." And I remember going cold. And I had no I didn't have time. I know. I didn't have time to think. I went cold. Raised my hand and I went, "Miss, he just called her a black piece of trash." Literally, in front of everyone. I did it.
Good for you.
I was frozen. Still. I couldn't move. I just said it. And then the teacher came over, grabbed the little boy by the hand and took him away. And as he was leaving, that little piece of shit said, It's a game we play. I call her a black piece of trash. She calls me a white piece of trash. And that's the moment when I finally like stopped feeling cold and I got angry because I was like, that little kid's lying, that little liar. As soon as he was gone, him and the teacher were gone, I remember feeling like looking around and I was like, oh, everyone heard me. Everyone saw me say that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, am I like a tattletale? Am I like—
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I literally felt a little like embarrassed and felt like, did my teacher's pet characteristics that I have inside me, that type A-ness that I have inside me, did that get the better of me right now? Like, did I just like mess up?
Did the girl say anything to you, the little girl?
Nothing. No one said anything. No one had any reaction. No one even like batted an eye. And for the longest time, I had just that memory like tucked away like, oh, that was a moment where I was a little teacher's pet. Like that's how I had stored it in my mind.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And the one regret I have looking back on that memory is I never even talked to the little girl. I never even looked at her.
Right.
Like I never even asked her if she was okay. But once again, in that moment, I don't even think I registered. Like all I saw was I saw a kid doing something I didn't like.
Right.
And I told the teacher because it scared me a little.
And it is so hard when you're a little kid to just like even know, like I'm sure we all think back about like, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that because we feel so helpless. But I think just speaking up, I mean, clearly the right call. That comment is so evil.
Yeah. Clearly the right call now looking back. But when you're little, you don't really pick up on everything that's happening.
No.
So yeah, that's very much what like similar to what Gilbert was describing of like, things would just happen, like his encounter with like his mom driving and the guy from the KKK. Like he didn't register any of that. He didn't understand any of the subtleties that were going on. He was like, I just saw my mom and my mom is a law-abiding citizen, but she was like, I'm just gonna take off in this car. I don't care if we're on a red light. Like I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, you really don't know what's happening, but you just pick up on these things. Like that's insane.
The other thing that I really picked up on that he said was when he mentioned that everything about him is Southern except his DNA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I really liked that. And I really related to that because I think it's something similar to what we talk about all the time, which is like, you have this mix of like cultural identities, right?
Right, yeah.
And they're not just about your DNA. They're not just about like where your parents are from. They're not just about where you were born. They're not just about where you're currently living now. It's like a mix of all these things. So I really related to that.
Yeah, and sometimes when like DNA doesn't even play a role, like with all of these 23andMe stories that have come to light, where like someone actually told me the other day, this person, I can't remember, it was like at a social event. Like this person was like, my friend who is just always talks about how Italian he is, how he just has a relationship to that area of the world. No. And then he did a 23andMe. And there's zero Italian. And obviously there were some family, drama that he discovered with the 23andMe, like his father wasn't his father. Anyway, his heritage, this identity that he put is not in his DNA at all. So yeah, he loves wine, he loves pasta, he really relates to that area of the world just because that's what he chose to relate to. And I thought that was like, well,
you know what? He chose it. He chose it and he loves it and why not?
Yeah.
But
that made me think of this of like, yes, Gilbert is just like, very Southern. And he talks how he loves the South and wants to live there forever, loves the community. Those are his people. I just think it's great how he tells his story through his special. It's really funny and entertaining. And I love that he found that that's the way to go about his comedy, to just be authentic to his story,
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful way to tell such a complicated story.
Yeah.
Where people might have like different opinions about what an Iraqi man is and should be. And the fact that he is one, but he's telling a much more layered and complicated story. I think comedy is like such a fun way to do it because everyone wants to laugh. Like a good laugh, sure. That's it from us. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and check us out on Instagram at Where We Land Pod. Hasta la vista, babies.
Ciao, ciao. At Where We Land, we know some immigrant experiences are harder than others, especially for those in the margins of our current legal system. If you would like to help, we encourage you to support organizations that provide services for immigrants and champion their rights. You can find a list of organizations in the show notes.